Today's show is sponsored by the ABV Barrel Shop. The ABV Barrel Shop is located in the St. Louis metro community of Arnold, Missouri. The ABV Barrel Shop is focused on one thing: single barrels. Best of all, you can try before you buy. Head over to abvbarrelshop.com to sign up for their email and text distribution so you know what they have in stock, what classes are coming up, and who from the industry may be coming in to visit. The ABV Barrel Shop. It's where single barrels live. We are also sponsored by the Bar to Go. The Bar to Go offers traveling minibars that are no bigger than a small purse or toiletry bag. Best of all, they are fully customizable so you can create the perfect piece that is unique for you. If you own your own business, what a fun and unique way to promote what you do. Check them out online at thebar2go.com. That is the number 2 in the Bar to Go. If you have wholesale questions, call my friend Isabel Clark at 504-481-1297. Finally, we are sponsored by the Neely Family Distillery. NFD is a family-owned business that keeps ringing up awards in the spirits world. Head to Sparta, Kentucky to experience the family history, award-winning spirits, and meet the Neely family. Check them out online at neelyfamilydistillery.com. Now, on to the show.
Let's drink!
Welcome to the Bourbon Daily, the podcast about everything bourbon delivered to you every day of the week. Today we have a special show where we remember our friend Danny Kinnaird, frequent podcaster on the Bourbon Daily and just a good guy in general, someone we saw at a lot of the ABV Network events and a big-time supporter. I mean, the first time that I ever remember meeting Danny, now I may have seen him at, events and things like that around before this because he certainly was on the bourbon scene before we kind of got to know one another. But the first time that I ever saw Danny was he came to one of my classes. I used to do classes at Total Wine here in St. Louis. They would be just general things. I might bring in, speakers from, distilleries, that type of thing. Other times they would be educational, Bourbon 101 or bourbon history and, stuff like that. A look at master distillers and their roles and things like that. And, Danny would just come to these events and turns out to be a big supporter of what I do. We become friends. At first it's, he's a guy in my class, and next thing you know, we're buddies and we're hanging out and, doing things. And, he would come to my house. He lived, all the way across town from me. I live all the way south. Danny was, up in the northwest part of St. Louis, and really about 50 minutes away from each other, I'd say, something like that. So not necessarily real close, but his in-laws did live in the same town that I live in, so they lived all the way south. So Danny would be here, and he'd pop in, and I'd see him and stuff like that. And, he started going on our events. We started doing more and more ABV Network events, and Danny was a regular at those. I mean, I certainly remember him being at our Moonshine event. He loved that because one of Danny's goals and dreams was to start distilling himself. He liked the idea of, making whiskey and had gone down that road to a certain degree. He never got a still, but he got all the other stuff that you need to do so. And it was something that he had planned to do, and just like the idea of doing it. He took to heart a quote that Pappy G did one time when he said that, when you make your own whiskey, it may be the worst whiskey that anybody's ever made, but you made it, something like along the lines of that. And Danny liked that quote because it wasn't about, making great whiskey, at first. Hopefully you're going to refine it over time, but it's just the fact that you're doing it. Something that he loved and, always wanted to do. And it's unfortunate Danny didn't get to do that because, as many of you know, today is the anniversary of his death. So September 3rd, 2022, Danny passed away, unfortunately, at the age of 45. He had a heart attack, and it was one of those things where, you're just gone in a moment. And that's a very tough thing. And, I've seen both sides of this equation where, you have a disease like cancer, or like my buddy Rick Brenner battling ALS, and you can see, a person, over time, the devastation that it takes on an individual versus, in the example of Danny or my father, when, lost lost to a heart attack. It's, you're there one day and gone the next. And that was the case with both Danny and my father. We had, obviously, we're friends, talk and things like that. And, you're great one day, or, things seem perfectly fine. And then the next day you're just gone. And, it's just incredibly sad. It leaves you with all those conversations and things like that you'd like to have. But, it is one of those things. And I want to do these memorial shows like this on September 3rd of every year. It's ABV Network's Danny Kinnaird Day, because I want us to remember Danny. And I think that's incredibly important. I am a big advocate of remembering our friends. And, when it's a celebrity, presidents, we have days that we memorialize them, and holidays and stuff like that. When it's just a normal person, it's just your friend, it's up to, your friends to remember you. And I think that Danny's friends go far beyond just people like me and the guys and women that he worked with, and his family and friends. I think Danny had a big network because I think people who listen to the show felt like Danny was a friend. I think that's what happens with the Bourbon Daily, is you get involved in people's personal lives. You feel like you're there with them. Because we're a group of friends just hanging out, talking and doing shows, and we're laughing and having fun, and you're listening every day with us, you feel like you're part of the group, whether you're ever on the show or not. So I think that's an important component why we want to remember Danny. So we've got a show dedicated to him today. We'll talk a little bit more after the break. For right now, we're going to do a quick cork pop. I'm the only one here, so I thought it would be appropriate to do Wild Turkey 101. So obviously Danny was a big Wild Turkey fan, and I thought it would be a good idea for me to do a Wild Turkey cork pop on this day, so in remembrance of Danny. So here we go. Not great, but you know what? That's a winner, because I'm the only one doing this today. So I did that for Danny, and cheers to my buddy, Danny Kinnaird. What we'll do next, we'll take that quick break, and then when we come back, we're going to be talking more about Danny. We'll do that in just a few. Okay, let's talk about the people that make these shows happen. First up is the Stave and Thief Society. Via their in-person class at Moonshine University in Louisville, Kentucky, the Stave and Thief Society is the place where you, a bourbon enthusiast, can expand your knowledge and emerge an executive bourbon steward. In 2017, I completed my executive bourbon steward certification. It's the most comprehensive bourbon certification available and connects you with an expansive network of bourbon enthusiasts and professionals. Check out the full listing of in-person and online certifications and join the society today by enrolling at staveandthief.com. We're also sponsored by the ABV Barrel Shop. The ABV Barrel Shop focuses exclusively on barrel picks. It's the job of owners Steve Akeley and Jim Fosnot to seek out distilleries that are making the best whiskey in the world, taste through their barrels, and select the ones that are off-profile in the best way possible. They have high standards and refuse to allow anything into their store other than something they would be proud to have their name on. This leads to some really awkward conversations with distilleries that can't make it, but they do it for you, their customers. Learn more about what is going on at their St. Louis-based store by heading over to abvbarrelshop.com. Last but not least, we are sponsored by Neely Family Distillery. Royce Neely is the 11th generation distiller in one of America's oldest distilling families. A visit to Neely Family Distillery takes you through family history, where you can see all the artifacts and newspaper clippings through the years from this family that started distilling in America after James Neely arrived from Northern Ireland in 1740. Today, Royce Neely and his team are crafting some of the best spirits in America. Their bourbon and absinthe offerings keep winning top honors in the spirits competitions. Recently, their absinthe made history as the first platinum winner in the absinthe category at the San Francisco Spirits Competition. Neely Family Distillery is definitely a bucket list destination if you are a bourbon fan. Learn more about their spirit offerings, visiting their facility, and the awards they have collected over at NeelyFamilyDistillery.com.
All right, I'm Neil.
And I'm Melanie.
Together we're the Robinsons, and you're listening to the Bourbon Daily.
All right, everybody, welcome back. This is Steve Akeley. I'm here on a day that is very sad, but also want to be a bit of a celebration of my friend Danny Kinnaird, who unfortunately passed away 1 year ago today. So Danny, for many of the audience, we're always getting new audience members, and maybe some that just come in and they start listening to the shows for new, and they don't go back in the catalog. They still get to hear Danny talking, and maybe they don't even know who he is. So Danny is the guy who does a lot of our bumpers. So I had recorded a lot of these because Danny was funny. I mean, Danny was on the show a lot. You know why? Because I like Danny on the show. I get to decide who comes on the show, and Danny was funny. And he liked doing it too. So Danny loved being on the show. And so here's an example. So just to be clear, in case someone is rather new to the audience, heard some of these bumpers, doesn't necessarily know who it is. Here's an example. This is one of Danny's bumpers that he did.
This is Danny Kinnaird, which is turning into Freddie Mills. Y'all have a good fucking day because this is the Bourbon Daily. Thank you.
I mean, that's gold. And that's who Danny was. And then sometimes we also did bumpers where Danny wasn't necessarily doing a bumper. He just was doing funny stuff. So here's an example of that. So here's another example of one of our bumpers. And this is one where Danny was just saying some crazy stuff. And it didn't make sense, but there you go. Well, go ahead, Danny. Is there something you need to say?
Just sitting there saying that, plain and simple, if you're sending me to a text, you need to tell me you need to send it to me in a text. So
So this concept of Freddie Mills too starts, Danny has an alter ego, and I did a show. How that all got going was I did a show. Danny used to, when he drink, late at night, he would start sending me some text, and I never made sense of it. I never responded to him because, how do you respond to someone who is clearly drunk and not making any sense? I just kept them, not initially to do anything with them. I just, didn't respond. I would just have these texts. And then I decided to do a show about Danny's crazy texts. And unfortunately, that was the last time Danny ever texted me like that. So I don't know if it embarrassed him or it was like, I'm not gonna, basically give this guy show ideas. So he quit doing it. But in one of the texts, and we would have someone read them on the show, and then we would try to decipher what Danny was saying. And one of them, he refers to Freddie Mills. And ultimately what came out of that was we decided that was Danny's drunk counterpart. When Danny would get drunk, he would turn into Freddie Mills, and that's what he was referencing. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know. I don't know that Danny knows. I mean, Danny would do these things, and, when this kind of stuff would happen, he wouldn't remember it. And there was many examples of stuff that Freddie did that Danny didn't do that Freddie did. And, Danny would be at a loss to try to explain what Freddie was talking about. So it was just one of the funny aspects of that Danny persona was the fact that he had an alter ego. So much so that when we opened up the ABV Barrel Shop, we have the names of people that are on the podcast, and we did two for Danny. One that had Danny's name on the back, and then one that said Freddie Mills. So it just depended. Our idea was that Danny will be sitting in whatever chair is most appropriate on that day. It might be Danny Day, or it might be a Freddie Mills Day. So, but yeah, Danny was so excited about us opening up the ABV Barrel Shop. He had a lot of fun. One day he was driving through town before we even opened the place. We were working on it and all that, and he posted a photo on social media of him holding some money, first in line at the door, which was hilarious. And then another time he set up a chair outside the door, and the day that we opened up, he had chair number one in line. I mean, it's just so great to think about, how much he enjoyed that, and he did get to spend a little bit of time at the shop. And ultimately, he's the guy who helped us, get that place open too. He did the plumbing for us. So Danny, I don't know if everybody knows this, but Danny was a plumber, worked for, was a city plumber for, I forget the name of the town he was for. That doesn't matter though. I'm sure Misty will be like, it's this one. You should have known that. But I don't remember. I'm old and I don't remember a lot of stuff. So that just happens. That's something we all have to deal with. My memory loss as I get older. But again, it's not an important detail to the subject. Danny was a plumber, and he helped us out because he was able to look up the codes for Arnold and get everything up to speed. And one of the things that Danny just loved was the fact that Jim did one one thing with the plumbing. That was it. Jim's not, as much as he can do, he's not great at plumbing. He's not comfortable doing commercial plumbing or anything like that. He did one thing. It was just changing out of, some sort of hose or something like that. I don't even know what you call it. I don't fix anything, but he changed one thing in the bathroom, and it was wrong. When we got our inspection, our occupancy inspection, they said that does not pass. And it wasn't anything Danny did. That was the one thing that Jim did. And Danny loved that story. He loved the fact that everything that he did was good, but the one thing that Jim did caused us to not pass inspection. So we had to change that out. What Jim did is he used this pipe thing, hose, whatever you call it, was not commercial grade. So you have to use commercial grade when you are doing things in a business. So that's how we got messed up there. But funny stuff. So another one of those funny things that happened was one time Danny and I were at Neely Family Distillery for an event. Danny normally traveled with his wife, Misty, but she wasn't able to go. She's a nurse, and sometimes she has to work weekends, so it worked out where she wasn't going to be able to go. And Danny wasn't going to attend this event either if Misty wasn't going to go. But I said, hey, I'm doing the event. You and I can go together, and you can be part of the event. So that's what we did. Ends up being a great, story. So we travel we're in Danny's campers where we stay. So right out on the Neely parking lot, we're staying in Danny's camper, which is pretty cool. It's a nice setup, couple beds, one at the front where Danny slept, and then I slept at the back. There's like bunk beds, and I slept at the lower bunk. And it was fun. I mean, we had a lot of laughs. I used to always joke that Danny, who always wore a Texas hat, I bet you he had a spare that he kept under one of those cake safe type of things. And sure enough, when I go inside of that camper, there is one of those cake safe things with a hat underneath it, a Texas hat, mint pristine condition underneath that cake safe. And we just had a good laugh. And that was all about, that whole weekend was about fun and laughs. And it's, as you look back, you're not realizing it at the time, but as you then look back after he passes away at such a young age, that you realize, man, how special was that? What a great moment that was. I'm so glad that happened that way. I'm so glad, that Misty had to work. I mean, I would have never stayed in, a room with Danny under most circumstances, but it was an opportunity where he got to attend the event, and it just worked out where both of us, would do that. And, we just laughed the whole time. I mean, and that becomes one of the, a key moment in our friendship. And because we'd, changed from being people that knew each other from events, me, hosting events or doing podcasts at Still 630, he would be there for a lot of those type of things. And, we changed from being, people who interacted because of network things to actually just being friends. And that was certainly a great moment. Danny just was a good person. He helped fix my mom's lawnmower. It's one of the things that he liked to do. He liked to tinker on lawnmower engines. He would pick up, a lot of people will give away lawnmowers when they don't work anymore. Because what are you going to do with it? You can't put it at the curb and throw it in the trash. So people just give them away, and Danny would go drive around and get those and work on them. And he knew how to fix small engines. And then he would sell them, very reasonable price. And I asked him my mom had a problem with her lawnmower and couldn't get it going. And Danny drove out, like I said, he's almost an hour away. He drives all the way down, gets her lawnmower, picks it up, fixes it at his home shop, and then brings it back, to her. And then, he doesn't want any money. And then, then he finally says, I forget, he wanted like $8 or something to fix it. My mom was like, no, I'm going to give you a few more bucks than that. So, but he was just a good guy. And that's the type of guy that he was. His in-laws came in and they would talk about, how much they loved Danny. They bought him a gift not long before he died, unfortunately. We had a hazmat from Woodhat. They bought that for him as a surprise. And why did they do that? Because Danny was just a good guy. He would make soup for them and stuff like that. Danny was a very good cook, and he would make meals, easy to prepare meals for them and stuff like that, to make their life a little bit easier. Why did he do that? Well, because he's a good guy. I mean, that's the continuing story in all of this. Danny was just a really good person, and it just was it's a tough loss. It's something that, to this day I can even struggle with as I think about it, the fact that he's not here. I mean, it was a really, tough time losing Danny, and I'll never get over it. I mean, you don't get over these type of things when you lose a good friend like that. So I just wanted to do a special show just to keep Danny at the forefront of the mind, not only of our friends. I think they'll never forget Danny, those that knew him, but we get this whole new audience of people that didn't know Danny, maybe heard the bumpers, didn't know exactly who he was. I just wanted to take a little bit of time to let you know a little bit about my buddy Danny. And like I said, I want to continue to do that every September 3rd, where we always remember our good buddy Danny Kinnaird. On that note, we're going to wrap this one up, as we always do, by talking about where people can find us. For me, I'm an easy guy to find. I'm at Steve Akeley. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. I've got a website, steveakeley.com. We've also got a company website. That thing's abvnetwork.com. Check it out. Everything that we do is out there. We put all of our previous shows, our blogs, so much more, abvnetwork.com. Come by and see me. The ABV Barrel Shop, it's definitely worth checking out. Normally, I like to talk about the fact you can try before you buy, and we've got the best barrel picks in the world. But you know what? Come by and see. We have a Danny Kinnaird Memorial there. He helped acquire a lot of this memorabilia that you see there. And when he passed away, we called our back hallway, which takes you to the office or to the bathroom right at the back of the store, Kinnaird Hall. And there is a little memorial to Danny back there. There's a little plaque with his picture on it, so you can see what he looked like if you never saw Danny. And you can see some of the stuff that he helped acquire for the shop to make it the special place that it is. So Danny's part of that shop forever, and I'm really proud that is the case. So one last thing, before we sign off, one of the coolest things we can do is give you, in true Bourbon Daily fashion, the 21 Cork Pop Salute. So I was reading about the 21 gun salute, and I guess it started, with the Navy fleet of Great Britain, and they, of course, had the greatest Navy in the world. At one time, they probably would argue they still do have a great one, but, the ships typically would have 7 guns, so they would do a 7-gun salute. And then as forts were utilized to fight against, land forts were used to fight against ships, you could fire 3 times as fast from the forts, reloading and all that, versus the ships. So you could get out 21 shots off in the time it took them to get 7. So it changed to 21 gun salute, and that is the standard by which 21 guns salutes are the standard now, which you see all over the world. So they're used at funerals and things like that, the 21 gun salute. And typically, if you ever wondered, it's not someone usually shooting 21 times. It's 3 groups of 7. Again, go back to the early days of, those 7 guns going off at a time. So, but we do it a little bit differently here. We haven't done this often. Hopefully we never have to, do it again for anyone else, but we do our 21 Cork Pop Salute. Again, Cork Pops are something that's been part of the Bourbon Daily since we started. It's always going to be part of the show. With that, I'm going to sign off today, but I'm going to leave you with the 21 Cork Pop Salute for my friend, Danny Kinnaird. Before we finish the show, let's talk about some of the great companies that support the ABV network. First up is Moonshine Still Pro. Moonshine Still Pro is owned and operated by Russell Creed, who makes stills for the hobby distiller. He offers a one-stop shop for everything the at-home distiller needs. Whether it's a small, experimental stovetop still or something bigger you run outside, he has the still or parts you would have difficulty fabricating yourself if you were trying to build a DIY still project. Additionally, he has resources to assist in creating unique distilled spirits, including heirloom grains, barrels for aging, and recipes. Check out Russell's company online at moonshinestillpro.com. Finally, I have a question for you. Have you ever boxed a bear? Of course not. That'd be silly. Bears really don't follow the rules, so shots in the back of the head, punches to the nuts, and scrums after the bell would be the norm. A better idea would be to enjoy Boxing Bear Whiskey, a brand crafted by Nobleton's Distilling House in Union, Missouri, and sold exclusively at the ABV Barrel Shop in suburban St. Louis. This is a popular offering that sells out quickly, but when you are in town, stop by the ABV Barrel Shop and see if they have it in stock. Better yet, sign up for their email and text distribution over at abvbarrelshop.com, and you'll know exactly when it is in stock. This is Steve Akeley, owner of the ABV Network, signing off. We thank you for listening to our programming and truly appreciate your support.
The Bourbon Daily is part of the ABV Network. For more information or to become a sponsor, please visit abvnetwork.com. Thanks for listening, and cheers.
This has been a Steve Akeley production.